All right, hello everyone. This is the review of the quiz. I'll be making videos like this to go over with you when we have a lot of things going on in the classroom, like iReady, working in stations, those of you who need to make quiz corrections, etc. So let's look at the quiz that you just took. As you can see, I just worked out for you. Number one, let's look at why that is what it is, though. What I did was I rewrote the question here, 4 plus 2 cubed divided by 3. The first thing you would need to do is to cube 2, which then becomes 8. 4 plus 8 then becomes 12, which then is 12 over 3. Some of you wrote 12 divided by 3. Some of you wrote 12 divided by 3, but that can be simplified because 3 goes into 12 a total of 4 times, which then is going to give you the answer 4. All right, so let's look at number 2. And let me finish rewriting this for you. This is going to solve the whole thing out. So we have 1/2. Here's the original question. So we have 16 plus 24 within parentheses. This means 1 multiplying by 1/2. So whenever you see numbers with parentheses like this over here, let's say I wrote 5, 2, this is the same thing as saying 5 times 2. It's a different way of saying multiplication. So you would follow order of operations by adding 16 plus 24, which is 40. And then you would then do the exponent part, which would be 4 squared, which is 16, as you can see here. Then continuing to follow order of operations, 1/2 times 40 becomes 20, and then 20 minus 16 equals 4. Now let's look at the last question here. As I write that out, this one I had to do underneath to give you enough room so that you could see. So the question becomes parentheses 12 minus 2 cubed minus parentheses 4 plus 2 parentheses squared. See the difference where the exponent here is inside the parenthesis, but here it's on the outside. That makes a big difference because here we're just going to apply the 3 exponent to the 2, and 2 cubed becomes 8. However, on this one, it's on the outside. So you would then follow order of operations by adding 14 plus 2, which becomes 16. And then we're going to square 16. So in this line, I did 12 minus 8, which then becomes 4. And then here, I did 16 times 16. Now, I can show you that. I just use a calculator. It becomes 256. This is going to result in a negative answer. 4 minus 256 then becomes negative 252. Now let's look at this next question. This was a vocabulary question based on what we had talked about with absolute value. So it says, why is the absolute value of a number always positive? So let's look at what this word problem is asking you to calculate. So look at these word choices and see if any of these ring a bell. So the first choice says, because you do the opposite of what you see. This is what most students think the answer is, but it is not accurate at all. So it's not going to be the opposite of what you see. That's just not going to work. It doesn't work like that. The next choice is, because distance cannot be a negative number, and absolute value is how far a number is from 0 on a number line. Because distance can't be negative, that means the absolute value of any number is always going to be positive. The absolute value of any number is always going to be positive. Because choice C, because dividing by negative numbers is more difficult, that doesn't even make sense. And because the absolute value of any number has to equal something, that technically is true, but that's not the best answer. That leaves you with B, which is, again, because distance cannot be a negative number. Let's go to the next one here. So I put 5 and 6 on here. The absolute value of 23 means how many spaces is 23 away from 0 on a number line. That answer is 23. And on number 6, The absolute value of negative 34, again, is going to be 34 because it's 34 spaces away from 0. Now using that information, let's look at the last questions. So, in this question, it's asking you to first identify where the submarine, airplane, and whale would go. Here are what the numbers are on the left. So 35,000 feet is the plane. Negative 800 is the submarine. It is negative because it is under the ocean, and sea level means 0, if you didn't know that. And the whale is at negative 10,000 feet. So let's look to see where these would go. Airplane is at 35,000. Submarine is at negative 800. Whale is at negative 10,000. Now, there wasn't a space on the number line for negative 800, so we put it in between sea level and negative 2,500 because negative 800 is between those two numbers on a number line. Then we look at choice B, or question B. It says, how far apart is the plane from the submarine? Well, the absolute value of 35,000 feet to 0 is 35,000. The absolute value of negative 800 is 800. And then we're going to add those to become 35,800 as your final answer. And then the last question, it says, how far apart is the whale from the airplane? Same thinking applies. The distance from the airplane to sea level is 35,000 feet. And the distance from sea level down to the depth of where the whale is located is 10,000 feet. You take the absolute value of those numbers and then add them together, and that leaves you with 45,000 feet. So please write all of your corrections on your quiz or on a separate sheet of graph paper and staple it. You need to show how all of this work happened. If you need to rewind this video because you still didn't get it and copy that, you can, but you must show the steps in order to receive full credit. Even if you got a 0 out of 9, you can still get 100 on this assignment by making all of the corrections in the proper way. Ask me if you have any questions yourself.